Good day, I'm Carrie Smith and this is your JIS News for Friday, November 6. Prime Minister Portia Simpson-Miller yesterday gave instructions for the health sector audit report commissioned by Portfolio Minister Fenton Ferguson earlier this year to be released today. Mrs. Simpson-Miller instructed Dr. Ferguson to publish the report earlier than originally planned, saying it was important to do so at this time. The decision was taken at a Partnership for Jamaica National Council meeting held at the office of the Prime Minister on Thursday. During the discussions, the partners contended that there was an issue of perception that needed to be addressed by way of issuing the report. Prime Minister Simpson-Miller, meanwhile, assured the partners that there was no attempts on the part of the government to cover up anything. She also reiterated her administration's commitment to working with the Partnership for Jamaica, which she said consistently provided a platform for open and transparent discussions that generate understanding on national issues. For his part, Minister Fenton Ferguson provided a comprehensive update on the improvements being undertaken in the health sector. The report was published on the website of the Ministry of Health and made available to the media. The Economic Program Oversight Committee, EPOC, says Jamaica has surpassed the July to September quantitative targets under the IMF program. EPOC's co-chairman Richard Biles says the targets for the primary fiscal balance and the net international reserves were exceeded as at the end of September.
Primary balance, we recorded 50.8 billion and the target was 40 billion. So we exceeded that quite handsomely. The NIR stands at 2.4 billion US and the target was 1.4 billion US. So once again, a very safe margin by which we pass both of these critical quantitative targets for the IMF program.
Mr. Biles also reported that overall revenue for the first 6 months of the fiscal year was slightly ahead of target and ahead of last year's intake by 13.4%. Expenditure for April to August, meanwhile, was $13.8 billion below budget.
So it seems to us that from government data, Jamaica will meet the most important IMF targets for the 10th quarterly review. The IMF team is in Jamaica now, and they will be conducting that review for over the next week or so. They will issue their report and it will then go to their board. But it looks to me as if we will pass because those quantitative performance criteria have been met quite handsomely.
Residents of 5 farming communities in South St. James will now have improved access to potable water following completion of the Maho Ridge to Horse Guard water supply system. The project was implemented by the Rural Water Supply Limited and commissioned into service last Friday. The work included the installation of 3 7,000-gallon water tanks, a pumping station with chlorination room, and the installation of 1.4 kilometers of pipeline.
This project was completed at a cost of over 9 million Jamaican dollars. But I'm sure that we cannot put a money value on what it means to have a reliable supply of water for this community and other rural communities that have faced challenges with their water supply.
The water minister said the system would allow community members to attract new businesses and expand existing operations, which should increase employment opportunities and development within the rural areas. Government is making legislative gains in its work to improve the criminal justice system. As part of that, the House of Representatives this week passed amendments to the Criminal Justice Administration Act and an accompanying bill, the Judicature Appellate Jurisdiction Amendment Act 2015. Both were piloted in the lower house by Attorney General Patrick Atkinson. The Criminal Justice Administration Act was amended to provide for the reduction of sentences on guilty pleas. It also makes provision for the Court of Appeal in limited circumstances to review a prescribed minimum penalty imposed by the courts on conviction of a defendant. Parliament this week also approved amendments to the Transport Authority Act to increase the seating requirement for Hackney carriage vehicles from 4 to 5. The change corrects an inconsistency that exists between the number of seats, or passengers in short for Hackney carriage vehicles, and the number of passengers provided for in the law.
The focus of this amendment was to address a particular situation whereby the vehicles registered as Hackney carriage are licensed and are insured to carry 4 passengers plus a driver. But the license from the Transport Authority spoke only to 3 passengers and the driver. And this anomaly led to them being stopped by police because of the license issued by the Transport Authority when they have been insured for 4+1.
The bill will now go to the Senate for its approval. And finally, the House of Representatives started its debate on the new Road Traffic Bill, which seeks to replace the 1938 Road Traffic Act with a new legislation that reflects international best practices for road safety. The report from a joint select committee of Parliament set up to review the bill was recently approved by the lower house. Many of the recommendations made during the debate on the report have been incorporated in this bill. Minister without portfolio in the Transport Ministry, Maurice Guy, says the new legislation will address the 21st century issues on our roads. A grandfather clause to be introduced will ensure that undocumented vehicles are properly entered into the National Vehicle Register.
But this provision is in relation to vehicles which were in Jamaica for a long time. What we are seeking to do in this bill, Mr. Speaker, is to ensure that every vehicle that comes into the country is registered through the National Motor Vehicle Register.
The debate will continue in the next sitting of the House. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Carriages Smith. Thanks for watching.